Let me pull up this story we got here from Greg Price. The Biden administration asked Meta if they would take down a Fauci parody account on Instagram. The White House emailed Meta saying, Hi there. Any way we can get this pulled down? It's not actually one of ours. It was a Fauci parody account they were trying to get banned because the White House is actively participating in the censorship and Facebook is taking instruction from them.
That's right.
At this point, we need anybody who shared the Hunter Biden laptop story and was suppressed, or anybody who shared it in general, because Mark Zuckerberg admitted to suppressing it, to file a First Amendment suit against Facebook and the government because they colluded to violate your free speech.
Mm-hmm. You know, Rudy Giuliani, I had a meeting with him on this film, on his show, and he told me that when they got they went to get his stuff, right? The FBI came in and took his stuff. And he said to them, he says, well, you want these? And there were 2 laptops. And they said, what are those? He goes, those are Hunter Biden's laptop. And FBI said, oh, no, we don't want those.
We're good on that.
We're good on that. I mean, figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, so the suppression of it. And it's we're at a very dangerous time. I have not seen this in my lifetime, and we've had difficult times.
It just brings up what this unbelievable story with Zuckerberg admitting flat out the FBI came to him, asked him to suppress stuff. Maybe it was the Hunter Biden laptop. Maybe they already knew about it, but whatever it was, and Zuckerberg sends a signal that I'm game. Let's play ball. And we reached out to the FBI, Breitbart, and they didn't reply, which we can read into that exactly what you think. And so now it's game on. So now the government knows they can just go to all these social media giants, all these tech giants, and just say, will you please do this for me? And they've every reason to believe the answer is going to be yes every time.
They shut down
because
Trump.
They want those protections. They want
shut
those
down
protections.
Trump's Twitter.
It's good business for them to do what the Biden administration says. And that's the essence of the speech. It's sort of a dictatorial speech. It's sort of, if you disagree with me, you are the bad guy, you are the problem, not just with the country, but with planet Earth. He's never singled out an enemy like this, other than the regular Trump voters. That is his ultimate enemy.
It's a fascist speech. It is a thing that if you ever watch the movie
Hitler-esque.
I don't want to say it, but absolutely. It's the 1930s Germany. Now, you got to realize something. If you watch the movie Dr. Zhivago, and everyone thinks of it as it's a film that who's the great director? Stanley Kubrick did. And everyone thinks of it as a love story between Julie Christie and Omar Sharif. It's exactly what's happening in America today. My wife comes from Estonia, that part of the world.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I showed her the movie the other day. They experienced what's happening today. She's terrified. The signs are out there of what happened in that. And if you get a chance, watch Dr. Zhivago, even in terms of the taking away our weapons and then taking away our land.
But you know that they're not powerful enough. The signs are there. We're seeing history rhyme, but they're moving too quickly. I mean, look, we are a massively armed population. They would certainly like that to not be the case, but it is the case.
Yes.
And so I kind of, the reason why I've long said civil war is because in my mind, the path we're going leads to a president denouncing half the country, but the other half of the country is able to muster up defense and an economy and some kind of system to survive and persist. There's a possibility that it could be wrong in that it's not going to be a civil war, it's going to be a revolution. In which case, that is, Biden wins without a fight. That people just say, okay, well, whatever. And then the FBI starts arresting people, starts raiding people, they start silencing people. And they've been making tremendous inroads in that way. Going after the former president, unprecedented. What we are seeing right now is coup level, revolutionary level. They sent the FBI to the home of Donald Trump to take documents he had the authority to declassify. This has never happened before. This is one administration weaponizing law enforcement to target his political rivals. And they claimed Trump was doing it when Trump tried investigating the corruption of the Biden family.
In the Ukraine.
Do you remember when Trump, when Trump wanted to do a big parade with flyovers and show off some of the equipment for 4th of July?
Yeah.
Okay, what did Biden just do? He just put the military right behind him to intimidate the MAGAs that we will come get you. He's already said, he's already shown he'll throw the FBI, the former president. He's doing this classic projection. He's doing all the stuff we've been accused of doing for the last 5 years.
They've done this for decades.
Well,
this is their agitprop. This is their Marxist cultural revolution.
But this is an escalation. This is a massive escalation.
The reason I asked you your age is because we had someone super chat saying I'm 60 and I've never seen anything like this before.
Right.
I try to ask older people all the time when I see them, like, have you ever felt it this way or this bad? And the answer is no. I talked to a guy in an antique store. And I asked him about, because he was in his 60s, and I asked him about the Weather Underground. And he's like, oh, yeah, I remember all that stuff. And then I was like, is it worse today? And he's like, well, that stuff was bad, but the entirety of today feels way worse.
All right, talk about Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground. On their website, back in the day, on their Constitution, now the Weather Underground, they said they wanted to get a white liberal fighting force, combine it with the black liberation movement to bring down America, imperialism, colonialism, and institute world communism. That's Bill Ayers and Bernadette Dorn. This is what was on their website
Good
in the 70s.
friends of Obama, I think, right?
Yes, absolutely. Now, the people, see, we're not telling this. This is what's wrong with the GOP. They've got to talk about this. We've got to give historical reference point to what happened. Now you've got DAs financed by George Soros, and you've got them. Chesa Bodine was raised by Bill Ayers and Bernadette Dorn because his parents, this is the DA in San Francisco, who's letting criminals out, and the same guy Gascon in New York, in L.A., this is a absolute orchestrated, infiltrated thing. Bill Ayers went more underground, and what he started to do was infect education and the textbooks. This is what they did. And meanwhile, our education, I read a book when I was a kid, I recommend it, called, my dad was a Knight of Columbus. He gave me a book. This is in the late 1950s, early 60s. None Dare Call It Treason by John Stormer, who was considered a John Birch Society guy, and they tried to minimalize that. None Dare Call It Treason, and Masters of Deceit was another book by J. Edgar Hoover. He said, read these books. You never talk politics a lot. I read these books, and I've seen this incremental, it started with taking prayer out of school, no more Pledge of Allegiance, infiltrating education. It gave the playbook of what the left was, their playbook. Before Saul Alinsky and before that, they knew this. And we've let it happen. Our politicians have made deals. You've got Mitch McConnell, who has deals with all over the place. These guys, they go into politics and they get wealthy. They're not worrying about the American people. This is now, that's why I say you need a George Washington, because in a way, you need somebody that's going to, and Trump was strong enough to expose a lot of this and get the ball rolling on it. And he got, go ahead.
What about Ron DeSantis? What do you think about Ron DeSantis?
I love Ron DeSantis. He's an amazing person. I live in Florida now.
Oh, nice.
And he's taking on, I moved after 45 years of being in Los Angeles. I couldn't take what was happening.
So, Donald Trump wanted to drain the swamp. He wanted to fire these bureaucratic state individuals. He made a lot of mistakes. He brought in some bad people. And he thought that he really would, he didn't realize the level of obstruction with the Russiagate stuff. So I'm wondering, though, tactfully, Trump is lacking, right? And, even his ardent supporters love that he talks and he's gruff and Ron DeSantis has the decorum and the MAGA, behind him, but does he have the foreign policy, I wonder?
Well, here's my thinking, and I bring this up to people. I have 8 kids. I say you had a child who's 4 years old, God forbid, and he's very deathly ill, and you have somebody a doctor who speaks right, who does everything wonderful, will hold your hand when the child is sick in the hospital. The child expires, he'll come to the cemetery, give you something and call up and how you doing. That's that doctor. You got another guy that you maybe don't want to spend an afternoon with. He's belligerent. He's, difficult to talk to. He's a little bit crass, but yet he's guaranteed to save your child. Now, I think you need the disrupting aspect of Trump, and then DeSantis comes in for 8 years and rebuilds it.
But to answer your question, he was on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and he was in Fallujah, so I don't think that would be the issue. I think
okay. Answer.
So
So do you think DeSantis? Would you think Trump over DeSantis? Would you agree Trump over DeSantis? Like Trump president, VP DeSantis, then DeSantis president?
That would be nice. That would be a nice
very
scenario.
Nice, but is it wishful thinking?
Yes, absolutely. Probably.
I'm soundly in the we should have a primary camp. Mm-hmm. And if Trump decides he's going to run and he tells everyone to clear out, I'm afraid we won't. And I think a primary is better. I think it'll sharpen Trump, assuming he's the front runner. Or perhaps we see something interesting happen. And I'm just afraid we're not going to get to flesh out not just the ideas, but what you're talking about, the tactics. And this is something where I think it's essential that we do this, and I don't know if it's happening right now.
Somebody, we just got a super chat. Someone mentioned Carl Benjamin had a great video called "It Has to Be Trump," and one of the points he makes is that Trump has to finish out his narrative arc. What he started.
What he was the one that did it.
Good point. I mean,
look, I've seen, and I love DeSantis. I want him to stay in Florida for another 4 years, but I've seen him take. It's like him giving a Trump message in a certain way.
yeah.
He does do that. So Trump has ignited a thing, and they've demonized this guy so much. Now, look, I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know, but I do know, coming from New York. I was born in New York. I spent, 26 years in New York, okay? Coming from New York, I know, you got Oprah. You got people that he was revered by. He got the NAACP award.
Right.
People
Right.
said on both sides.
He helped clean the. He helped save.
He helped
the
save
city.
the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Giuliani, he understood that. He did the. He understood. Go ahead.
I was going to say I watched a documentary from a while back talking about how New York was dying. Nobody wanted to
Yes.
live there. Wealthy people were fleeing, and then Trump Tower and his property started bringing back the cool factor, and people all of a sudden now wanted to be there. And that helped kick it in the butt, along with Giuliani, of course, cleaning up crime.
Absolutely.
All these things played
And
a big
his
role.
Central Park ice skating rink is an amazing story how he got that done. I mean, by the skin of his teeth, it's super cool just to make New York a happening place. But they turned on him so hard because he had the wrong politics and he disrupted the status quo.
Do you know about the Wallman
I
Rink?
no, but I don't think it was.
People should know about the Wallman Rink, what he just brought up.
Tell me what happened.
Because the Wallman Rink was an ice skating rink. And this is why it's so important when he says, I just gave a $3 trillion infrastructure bill. Okay, we know what that's going to go to. We know the waste of money. And this story says the waste of government. And I've written about this Wallman Rink, talked about it, because I was there. The Wallman Rink was something that in the 1950s, the Wallman family gave $650,000 to do an ice rink in New York. Mayor Koch and the City Parks Department wanted to renovate it. So they put in 2 years and $3 million to renovate this ice rink. And a little girl is watching from her house. Daddy, when is the rink going to be ready? This is 3 years. She goes, well, honey, they should have it soon. 4 years and $6 million. 6 years and $9 million. And Donald Trump says, what the hell is going on here? So he goes into the fray. And New York City, there was a big political upheaval about it. And he got the rink. He got the rink. And they said that any overages he would pay for himself, any underages he would give to the cerebral palsy, the homeless, and AIDS victims. This is in the 80s. And the papers were fighting him and everything else. He got the rink. He did it in less than 4 months. And the first thing he said is, like he does, all right, he said, who designed this rink? And they said, well, we've got this Florida guy that's a refrigeration expert. And Trump, common sense, goes, what the heck does he know about refrigeration? So what he does is he calls up the Montreal Canadiens and says, who builds your rink? So-and-so. Now, here's what happens, and I've seen this. When we build highways, it takes an inordinate long time. Why? Well, in the ice rink, they went down and the guy said, they were putting down copper tubing, right? Because they have to put down copper tubing. And then they have to fill it up with Freon and then put the cement and then the water and all of that. Well, the copper tubing was being ripped off over the years. So who was getting that? And then more was putting down. This is 9 years.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so now what happens is Trump gets this guy, and then they put Freon in it. They pour the cement. The cement on one side is this high. It's that low on the other side. They never tested if there were any holes in it, but they had holes in the thing. So the guy says to Trump, he says, Mr. Trump, they don't use copper tubing for ice rinks. You use rubber tubing. You don't use Freon, you use a form of brine. He saved $750,000, gave it to the homeless. This is our government.
Yep.
And this is when they talk about infrastructure. That's why one of the reasons why I said, okay, I want this guy in. And even Oprah. Do you remember the Oprah interview with him? Did you ever see it? Put it up.
During his campaign?
25 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
You saw that one.
Yeah.
He talked about the same thing. This guy has talked about the same thing in terms of getting ripped off at that time. Japan, China, NATO, countries not paying their fair share. He was always America first. He was not a globalist.
Yep.
And they've painted him. They've assassinated this man. So that's where my frustration is, because they've made it so. What
I was going to say is,
ahead.
it's not his politics. It's sort of. his policies I don't think matter all that much. What matters is that I should say his domestic policy matters very little compared to his international policy. Ending the wars, no new wars, bringing our troops back. They don't like that when he comes into office, they say, the intelligence agencies will come to him and say, here's what you're going to do now. Here's our plan. And he goes, no. And they go, excuse us? And so they go to war with him. Russiagate. It's endless. Now the FBI raiding his home because they said, we're in charge and you'll do what we want. And Trump said no.
Mm-hmm. I lived in Washington in the Beltway for about 8-9 years. And one of the biggest shocks while I was there was realizing the military-industrial complex is not a conspiracy theory. It's 100% real. And these people are not going to vote for people or appoint people who are going to take away from their bottom line. They are not going to have policies that are going to reduce their income level. And the responsible policies, the way you do modern warfare right now, we do not need to have the military-industrial complex at the scale we do. The only politician in America who really understood that, apparently, was Trump. And he comes in, maybe there's a couple others, but none with his platform. He comes in, this is a huge threat. And he had a very minimalist foreign policy, peace through strength. It was entirely effective. And this is something that is a huge threat because that is how they make all their money. Look at where all these guys go when they're out of the administration. They go into this loop, this revolving door. They make millions of dollars in contracting and then back into the government for the next establishmentarian administration.
Look at what they did in Afghanistan. The billions of dollars that was left there, the planes, the weaponry, I mean, how can you do that?
It was intentional.
Right? Of course,
Biden surrendered.
Absolutely.
If Ian were here, but Ian's off for the night, he would tell you that Biden surrendered our forces, and he's correct. Biden abandoned Bagram Air Force Base without telling our partners in Afghanistan. That makes no sense. There's no way you do that on accident.
Such a scandal.
And then it was looted by just random people.
And then we droned a bunch of kids right after.
Yep.
Yeah, good stuff.
And it doesn't talk about it. And Joe wants to give a nice little speech on that.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.